I'm really looking forward to sharing some great content with you all. Actually, the goal of today's webinar is to give you some really practical information around partnering. We're going to move fast because I want to give you as much as I can in the limited time we have. And I've been driving partner marketing for a while now, as well as channel development, and it never gets old. And these are all tools that I myself actually use. So when we look at the agenda for today, we're going to talk about frameworks for thinking of partner relationships, going to give you a few tools for structuring success, and then give you a guide that I actually use to put it all in action with my teams, and now my team at Twilio, actually. So let's start off with some frameworks for thinking about partnering relationships. But we should probably take one little step back, which is to talk about why do you partner? Now that seems pretty obvious to most folks. Oh yeah, you got to have partners, right? Well, there's some very specific reasons and benefits around having partners. So let's go through a few of those. First of all, companies will partner to enable focus. There are things that you really want to put your talent and your resources on, and there are other things that are just stuff you have to get done. So if you can find a partner who can get that stuff done so you can focus on what you do really well, it can be a huge benefit to the company. People partner to reduce costs. That can be across any line of things from manufacturing to services to just delivering a great product. So reducing costs, that's a great reason to partner. People partner for market access. Oftentimes a company will be able to get, and by market we mean both geographic markets and also vertical markets. They'll be able to get into one market very easily, but not know how to penetrate another region or vertical or area of the world, and they'll use partners to be able to get that access. We partner for customer access. Sometimes you'll have a great offering, something that you really want to move to market, but you can't get to those customers you really want to get to, and a partner can help you with that. We partner to complete the solution. We may not have all the pieces ourselves, and I've had this happen to me in a number of companies over time. And so you'll partner to find other people who can help you complete the solution. We're going to talk about that idea a little bit more in depth. We partner for innovation and differentiation. I see a lot of companies that will have this great product that they have offered out there. They'll have a great service out there, but they don't have that innovation capability inside, and they'll find partners who can actually do it. Oftentimes, and I've actually seen a couple of customers do this, is that they may actually then acquire that company in the end for that ability to be able to continue that innovation and differentiation. We partner to expand sources of revenue. There may be offerings that someone else has that could really complement the portfolio of what you're already offering, and by bringing those into your portfolio and leveraging your sales team, you can actually create new sources of revenue. We partner to expand resource access. You see this a lot in industrial companies where they need to have natural resource access. And I'm sure there are other reasons as well why people partner, but important to think about all the benefits that partnering can actually bring to you. So let's jump to our first framework, and that's really looking at how you might segment the different types of partners you're working with. To really keep this simple, I boil it down to 3 buckets. First bucket is supplier partners. Second bucket is distribution partners. Third bucket is influence partners, and we'll talk a little bit about each of these. So first of all, supplier partners, probably pretty obvious. The strategic question you have to ask yourself is, am I going to buy it or am I going to build it? And the role of that supplier partner then becomes to complete the solution, which we just spoke to, enabling a faster time to market, facilitating focus on the core competencies that a company has, giving a competitive advantage, and reducing costs, all things we just spoke to. Distribution partners. Key question you have to ask yourself here is, do I want to go indirectly to the market or directly to the market? And the role of a distribution partner then is to extend that sales reach, accelerate sales, and reduce costs. And then our third bucket, which is one that people often forget about to think about really as partners when they're thinking about this full portfolio approach, are influence partners. Strategic question there is, am I better to go together with someone else into the market, or should I do it alone? The role there is influence partners can provide brand leverage, extend market reach, and they can afford some cost sharing in the process. So let's dig a little deeper into each one of these. The first one is that idea of the supplier partner. And a tool that I have always found effective in looking at who are all the partners that I might need to bring my full product to market is something we call the whole product. The whole product is that minimum set of products and complementary services that are needed to fulfill on that value proposition, that compelling reason to buy when you're going into the marketplace. And I actually will create this circle map and lay out the different pieces that I need when I am looking at the whole product I'm bringing into the market. Now, one of the areas that people often forget about when they're thinking about suppliers is the services side. Most customers, whether it's a consumer or a business-to-business environment, they have expectations of getting this very complete solution inclusive of all the services, and services can actually be a great differentiator around a product. So really think carefully about the whole product, and in addition to just the product components you might need, what are the services that you're also going to need, and are there partners that would be more effective in helping you deliver that? Coming now to our question of, do I need a distribution partner? One of the things here, and again, a tool that I have found useful, is thinking about what is my distribution strategy, but thinking of it in the context of high touch and low touch. So if you have an offering in the market, which is really easy to market and understand, and the solution that you're delivering, the product you're delivering, the offering you're delivering, isn't that complicated to deploy, you can go into a low-touch model, and therefore you can look for partners that offer that low-touch environment. It may be someone that has a website that can be able to that can distribute your product as well, or your service offering through the website. It may be a retail store where there's not a lot of involvement from the sales folks. If, on the other hand, what you're bringing to market has super high complexity in terms of making people understand it or understand some element like the pricing plan. Mobile phones are a great example of this. You think a mobile phone is easy to buy, but that pricing plan makes it actually really complex to understand. Or the solution complexity is very high in terms of actually getting something up and running, then you're going to want to have a more high-touch model and look for partners that can offer that. Someone that has a true sales force that can go in and sit down with a customer. So when you're thinking about your distribution partners, think about your distribution strategy. Think about it in the context of low touch and high touch. That'll help you get a good feeling for what type of partners are actually going to be feasible for you to work with. And then the third bucket that we had on our list are the influence partners. And as I said, these are the ones that often get forgotten because they don't think of them really as partners. But when you're looking at total portfolio management in a partner arrangement, you want to make sure that these folks get factored in. So let's talk about different type of influence partners. There are marketing partners. These are folks that you go to market with, and you get great brand association with them. You can do some demand creation. You see a lot of this. We're in the holiday times. You see a lot of this during holiday times where two totally different companies, maybe it's wine and chocolate, come together to be able to bring something to market, and it really is about a marketing partnership. You'll see side-by-side selling partners. These are folks that, hey, they're going into an account. You have something that their account might like. There's some value that you can bring together, and they bring you in and work with you. But again, there's no passing of money. There's no supplier-type relationship, distribution type of relationship. It's just going in and selling side-by-side. Association partners can be really super interesting. Drawing on my past, actually before Tech started off in the aerospace industry, we had something called the Helicopter Association International. Everyone in the helicopter industry belonged to it. That group affiliation of being able to get together in a common place and time, read the same publications, really helped develop the offering that we had in the market. They're ecosystem partners. Their value is really that idea of network effect. I think a great example here is when you think about mobile phones and that huge system of folks that they have around, from the people that make the cases to the people who make the apps. There's a whole network effect that is created by an ecosystem of partners. And then, and you see this a lot overseas, there is the idea of government partners. Partners who really endorse the business of what you're doing. So important to also think about influence partners. So kind of first framework we have here is thinking about the different types of partners and how you might segment that portfolio of partners you're going to have to manage. All right, we're going to now move on to another framework that I like, which is really thinking about what is that role of the partner. And some partners are focused on more than just the profit you might get from the relationship. So the way this framework is really set up is to look at what is the revenue and profit potential from the partner versus what are the core competencies they might help you to deliver. So partnerships can be more than just about money. They can be about making you a better company. And so I will look at the partners that I'm working with and kind of look at where do they fit in terms of this framework. So let's start with kind of the easy ones. So if someone has low revenue potential for you or low profit potential, and they're also not going to do much to help you develop your core competencies, call that a limited partner. You should probably limit how much you do with that partner as well, because they're probably not going to bring you a lot of value. The other corner, strategic partner, again, pretty easy to look at. Revenue and profit potential is high. They can really help you develop your core competencies. This is a really important partner as a part of your portfolio. And then looking at the other two quadrants, if a partner is great at helping you drive revenue, but maybe not as helpful to you in terms of developing your core competencies, we would call that an earning partner. And then in the lower bottom corner there, learning partner, these are folks that may not help you drive a lot of revenue or profit, but actually they're going to help you develop your core competencies as a business. So another framework in thinking about partner relationships is to think about, is this about the money? Is this about the core competencies that I might be able to develop through this relationship? What's the right mix? Helps you think about the role that this partner really helps you play. Now, this has been a very much an inside, what I call an inside-out discussion. What does it mean to me? What's the value to me as a company? It's also really important to think about partnering relationships from an outside-in perspective. What this means is, what's the value back to them? And I actually ran into this situation where I had a core component technology. Was great technology. It was a sexy technology. Everyone wanted to talk about it. We relied on partners as distribution partners in this case, and they were all out there creating the buzz, which obviously had some value to us because it helped us spread word of mouth and get the word out about what the company was doing. But what we found out in the process, when our revenues weren't going up the way we thought they should for all the distribution partners we had, we really dug in to understand the value from an outside-in perspective. And what we found out was they were really sexy to talk about, but in the end, the productivity from a revenue perspective for those distribution partners just wasn't that high. They had other things in their toolbox that they wanted to sell, stuff that was going to retire sales quotas a lot faster. And what we found was that we were in the position of being an orphan product. Super hot and sexy to talk about, but not really that thing at the end of the day that the partner was out there selling. So another way to think about partners is from an outside-in perspective, and to understand from the partner's perspective, am I a mainstream product that they're going to be out there selling, they're out talking about, that they're going to want to build great things around because they see it as good revenue for them? Am I a product that is somewhat adjacent or contiguous to what that partner is doing? So interesting, but not rocket ship stuff. Am I an unworthy product, meaning there's just no relationship at all that we should be having? Or am I an orphan product, someone that's kind of sexy to talk about, but not going to drive a lot of revenue? So important thought here is always look at relationships from an inside-out perspective, but also take that outside-in perspective as well. All right. So a few frameworks to think about partnering, thinking about why am I partnering. First framework we looked at was looking at what was going on in terms of our partner portfolio segmentation. We had that opportunity to talk about what roles do these partners really play for us, and then talked about that inside out and outside in perspective of, is this a partnership that's going to be successful? So now I want to share with you some tools for structuring success. And again, these are tools that I have actually used in practice. So one of the hardest parts about managing a partner portfolio for success is, how do you distribute the resources? And I've always found that there seem to be always more mouths to feed than budget resources to actually give out. And another thing that's really hard in all this is saying no. In fact, for me, that's one of the toughest things about strategy in general, is it's harder to say no than yes. And so making the tough decisions of where you're going to align those resources becomes really key. So I'm going to give you 3 tools for working with that and thinking about resource alignment. So this first one looks at that question of value again. Value to the partner and value to the company. And then looking at where you actually apply the resource. Now, what I've actually done is taken this and I've actually mapped out where my partners fit in terms of the different quadrants, just to give me a general guide of what I should do, but also to make sure I'm in alignment with my colleagues on how we should be addressing a given partner relationship. So again, we'll start with the easy ones. If there's low value to the partner and low value to your company, then you probably have a misfit here and shouldn't be spending any time or resources around this partner. You may be sitting, oh yeah, that's actually very obvious. but the reality is it does happen. And if you dig into your own partner portfolio, you're probably going to be surprised to find that there are actually some companies there that, hey, nice people, they contacted us at a trade show or an event, we wanted to do some business with them, but there was really never a good fit for the relationship. So don't put any resources there. The other one that's super easy is the strategic partner bucket. These are ones where there's a high value to the partner, there's a high value to your company, and this is where the bulk of your resources should be going in terms of investment in the partner relationships. And now going to our other two corners, if there's a high value to the partner, but not as much value to your company, this is probably an opportunistic relationship. You're going to put some money in it, you're going to put some people time into it, but at the end of the day, you're probably going to get that partner company to put in more resources than you would to the relationship because it's more important to them. Flip side, lower box, back to our orphan status. If it's high value to your company, but maybe not as high value to that other company that you're working with, then you will probably be the one that puts more resources into it than that partner does. So good tool for thinking about resource alignment, thinking about where your partnerships fall, and then making sure that everyone in your company has the same perspective, because you will end up where other departments are contributing to the partner relationship, and you want to make sure that everyone's in balance. So going to jump to our next tool. This one, again, same kind of a four-box setup, but instead of looking at it from a value perspective of value to the partner and value to you as an individual, this tool has you look at it from a perspective of strategic value of the relationship and the growth potential of that relationship. Now, growth could mean any variety of things. It could mean the amount of revenue that you can drive together. It could mean the type of new products that you could innovate on together. It could be in terms of the number of customers that you would be able to impact because of either the right product or the distribution. But again, thinking about partner value, thinking about alignment of resources, I will actually sit down and plot again, where do my partners fit in terms of growth potential and strategic value? And in this particular tool, what I do is I sit down with the team and look at, all right, how do we manage the relationship in each of these four boxes? So if someone is high growth potential and high strategic value, what are the specific things that we're willing to do for them? If someone is high strategic value but low growth potential, there's probably another set of logical things that we would do as a company around that partnering relationship. So second tool for thinking about where do my partners fit in terms of my business and what am I going to do in terms of managing that account relationship. All right. Third tool in terms of how we do the resource alignment. This one gets very tactical. What you'll see here in each of the bubbles are a list of bullets where we actually give specific things that we're going to give to the partnering relationship. By the way, this is actually one that we used at one of my prior companies, and what you're seeing are actually the things we were willing to give. And here what we looked at was the amount of resource that we were willing to give and the amount of time that we were really going to give to that partnering relationship. Here we're looking at partners as opportunistic partners, ones that we're not sure how far the relationship's going to go, but it's interesting enough that we want to be a part of it. Tactical relationships where, well, we got to have them. Let's go out and make them as successful as we can. And then strategic relationships, again, that partnership that's made in heaven. They're the relationships that are good for both of the partners. And we have specifically then listed for those strategic relationships. In this case, we were willing to do a joint business plan, joint development. We were happy to pre-package a repeatable solution. We were happy to do joint client development, as opposed to the opportunistic scenario where we said, okay, for partners that fall in the opportunistic bubble, we'll do some subcontracting, we'll do some marketing collateral, we'll do some joint training with them. So as a tool, again, your dots are going to be different. Thinking about what kind of resources and what kind of time am I willing to put into this partnership, and then what are the specific things that I'm going to give to those different types of partners. So 3 different tools, 3 different ways of managing for success, because the key to managing for success around a partnership is making sure you're getting the right resources to the right partners at the right time. Okay. Super critical. I didn't know about this, quite frankly, till probably about 10 years ago. But there's a different type of proposition for partners than there is for customers. Kind of used to always think, it's a value proposition. That'll apply to everyone. And what you really start learning when you dig into it is that partners are very different. And there is this construct of the partner business proposition. And this business proposition answers a very simple question for the partner. Why should we bet our resources and reputation on you? This contrasts with the traditional value proposition that you've probably encountered in marketing, which is, why should I buy your product? The reason this is so important is if you can't articulate why a partner should be betting their resources on you, chances are that's not going to be a strong partnership. It might even fit into that misfit bucket that we've talked about. So let's compare the two. So when we think about contrasting the propositions, a value proposition is all focused on the product that you've got. It's all focused on the objective of selling products using that value proposition, and it's generally built out by looking at what are the features we offer, and then what are the benefits that they return to our customers. When you're looking to write the business proposition for partnerships, it's focused obviously on the partners. And it's about creating a bias towards you through that business proposition. So the partner looks at it and goes, well, there's no way we couldn't partner. This is something we have to go do. And the attributes of it, rather than being features and benefits, are more aligned to things like profit, incremental sales, strategic value, the things that are going to get that partner jazzed about working with you. Now, one of the things that I like to do is before I actually go in and meet a partner and start discussing how we're going to work together is really think through and understanding their business. What is that business proposition I'm going to put on the table to make them really see the value and what we can go do together? So challenge you if you're managing partnerships, do you have a business proposition that sticks for each of those partners that you have in that portfolio? And that'll also help you assess where they fit in some of the quadrants that we've spoken about. So business propositions, super important tool for making that partnership successful. All right, this is an oldie but a goodie. You've probably heard about this before when you've looked at partnerships, but it's that classic give to get model. What is the partner going to give me? What is it that I really want for them? And what can the partner get from me in return? I've seen this tool used in a number of ways. I've seen people actually use it as a way to prep for going into the first meeting and sitting down and talking about why this relationship's going to go. So I have the business proposition, but now here are the specifics of what I want to get from you and what I can give you in return, and have that discussion. I've also seen people take this tool and actually sit down with it blank and have that first discussion where you're sitting side by side and saying, hey, let's walk through what the gives to gets are in this relationship. And interestingly, I've seen in some very large corporations, in fact, they actually line up a 6-by-6 meeting, meaning 6 of their people, 6 of our people, and sit down through the day to actually create a working model of what the gives to get are going to be when that relationship is actually brought to fruition. So this one has a number of stakes that might be potential stakes in the partnership. You can come up with your own that you think are more relevant. This one looks at, all right, what technology is out there? What product, platform, process technologies can the partner give to me, and what could I give back to them in return? What are the resources, money, time, talent, knowledge that might be involved in the partnership? What relationships might be important? A lot of this goes back to that original construct of why partner. So effective tool for, again, managing successful partnerships. So something to think about, and if you have a partnership up and running, sit down and see if you can't put this together. All right, so now kind of a short checklist, best practices, essentials of partnering. A lot of this may seem very obvious, but again, always good to go back and look at, is this what I'm doing in terms of managing the current partnerships I'm in? So bullet number 1. Be sure you understand the contractual relationship you have with a partner. May seem funny, but how many of you actually read all the individual line items in a partnership? That's someone else's job to do. That's a legal thing, right? Understand the contractual relationship. Be sure your partner understands the value you bring to the relationship. They may just think it's all about them. You want to make sure they understand what you're doing here. Be sure you understand the value the partner brings to you. Have a business plan that includes your partner. If partners are just this thing over here and they're not really a part of how the business is developing and growing, then that's kind of the way the resources are going to sit as well. They're going to be kind of, some of those little resources over there. So if the company really sees partnerships as important, make sure they're a part of the business plan that you put together. Get the top people in line in the organization with what you're doing with these partners. Again, you don't want them to be kind of that quiet group off in the corner. You want partners to be super successful, and that takes the whole organization rallying around the fact that they've got partners that are important to the business. Personally work to make the partnership successful. Don't take it for granted. If it's important to the business, invest the time. Relationship building is so undervalued today. We're so used to email. We're so used to social networks. At the end of the day, business is still about people. And find a good reason to partner. This gets back to that whole thing about the misfit partner. I can't tell you how many times I've run into relationships and companies where they've agreed to partner. Yeah, I like you. Let's go do something. And there's really not a good reason to partner. So something to look at. A few more. Don't tell your partner what you think he wants to hear. Tell them the truth. That's the only way a relationship is going to yield the results that you expect it to. When conflict does arise, seek to understand their point of view. Don't only think of it from your point of view and what has created the angst. Never talk in a negative manner about your partner in front of a third party. You guys are partners. You've picked them. They've picked you. Be very positive. Sounds like a whole relationship thing. Respect your partner's way of doing business. They may, especially if you're working on a global basis, they may just fundamentally think differently about things. So understand it. Don't let one incident spoil a relationship, and those incidents are going to happen. So make sure that you take a step back, take a deep breath, and figure out how to make things go forward. Stick with your partner in good and bad times. Their business is going to change and evolve, and part of a partnering relationship is being there for each other. And then focus on his added value at the end of the day. So just some things, some best practices, some ways to think about how to make those partnerships successful. And then a last tool, partnering life cycle. What you see over on the left is the stage of the life cycle, on the right, the general description of it. And partnerships are a lot like personal relationships. They grow and they change over time. Understanding where your partners fit from a life cycle perspective is important because you're going to do some things differently. You're going to treat the relationship potentially differently. And interestingly, you will find every partnership going through the same type of a life cycle. You have the early phase, the dating phase. Partners are sizing each other up. Firms are mobilizing internal support for the alliance. There's a lot of energy about how are we going to get this together? How are we going to make it successful? And you also really see a lot of attention to it. And so people are on their game. Then you get into that growth phase that, hey, we got this thing going. You want to make sure that it's continuing forward, but you have to demonstrate commitment to it because it's really easy, especially if you're building up multiple partnerships, to go for the shiny object. Oh, let's go put all that energy into the new partnership. Make sure you invest in that growth phase and you understand that you're in the growth phase. And then there is a maturity phase. There is that kind of, oh, wow, we've been together for a while. Should we still be doing this? Is this still the right marriage to be a part of? And it's about really revisiting that relationship, understanding the value. Contracts may be up for renegotiation, deciding whether this is still the right relationship or are you still in it because you've been in it for a long time. Go back and look at your partnering relationships. Think about where they actually sit in each phases of these life cycles and think about, are you treating it all the same? Or are you actually treating each phase of the life cycle slightly differently? Because you will find you will have a more successful relationship if you commit to this idea of there is a life cycle behind the relationships we're working in. So those are some tools for structuring success. There are a ton more out there, but I thought those would be particularly interesting for today. So now we're going to put this all into action. This is actually a tool that I developed for my own use with my team. And what I found the real value of it was really aligning on the view to relationships. And so it's called a strategy overview for relationships. It has 4 parts. This is actually a template that you can go use. It has the relationship overview, the opportunity overview, the business overview, and then the success overview. You can use this in different ways. You can use it as, hey, we got a lot of partners out there that want to work with us, and you can fill this out, and then you can use it as a tool for everyone to review and decide which partners are we going to work with. You can use it as a management tool, having people actually fill this out and then come back and check on it. Are we really getting what we wanted out of this? Are we really managing the relationship the way we thought? So use it in the way you want, but let's cover each of the areas. First one is the relationship overview. Some very simple questions to ask. And again, I don't make this a lot of written copy. I use bullets just to keep it simple. Otherwise, I find people won't do it. But first question is nature of the partnership. going back to our buckets. Is this supplier, distributor, or influencer from a partnering perspective? History of the relationship. Is this net new? Have there been previous interactions? What's the state of the relationship? Where are we in the life cycle? What's the level of the relationship? Some partners will be at the executive level. Got to have my CEO talk to your CEO. Others will be at more of a manager level. Understanding where that is and understanding if you're aligned is really important. Nothing worse than coming to a meeting and there's their CEO and you've got the purchasing manager. Importance of the relationship. Is it strategic, opportunistic, tactical? The expected length of the relationship. Are we in this for a short thing or is this for a long thing? So understanding that and making sure everyone is aligned. Opportunity overview. So what's the problem statement? Why are we partnering? What's being addressed? Is this a business problem or a technical problem? What's the size of the problem or the opportunity? What are the metrics that outline kind of the size or the velocity that we see this partnership taking off on? Ramifications. What happens if the problem we've just defined, this partnership's in to help us solve, is the distribution problem? Is it a supply issue we have? What happens if the problem isn't addressed? And are there any compelling motivators, reasons to act and act quickly? Business overview. So what's their combined offer to market going to be? What does this relationship actually yield? It's going to yield greater sales. It's going to yield a whole brand new product. It's going to develop new technologies we've never thought of before. What are the goals and objectives? Is it a revenue objective, a market reach objective? Going back to kind of those why do you partner questions we started off with. What's that business proposition? Not the value proposition, but why that partner should invest their resources in this relationship. And then what are my gives to gets? All of the tools we were just talking about. And then the success overview, the enablers. What's going to make this partnership actually work? Negatives, risks, what are the blockers? We need to be aware of those. We need to counter those if we think they're real. And then measurement. What does success look like 3 months out, 6 months out, and 12 months out? So, a lot of content. Told you we're going to work through it fast. Wanted to give you as many tools as possible, but you have some frameworks for thinking about partnering relationships. You've got some tools to help you structure for success, and you've got my tool for putting all of that stuff into action and making sure that you have a true portfolio of partnerships that you can manage and really make a difference in your business. So, that's it. That's all I got.
So we have quite a few questions. I'm going to start out with this one. And again, if you have questions, we're going to try to get to them all. We may not. I apologize for that. So first question here is there anything different in your approach to managing and measuring partnerships where the partner is in it for hire, or an outside resource partner?
Interesting question. Actually, one of the companies that you heard I was a part of was a company called Genpact, which was actually a business process outsourcer. So I've had an opportunity to spend some time in that world. The reality is it's a partnership. And so if you are hiring a partner to help you, you can have the exact same expectations in terms of the give to gets in the relationship, in terms of how much resource you're going to put in it. I've had a number of cases where I've used contractors to come in and supplement team things we needed to get done or innovation we needed to drive. And these same tools we've just talked about can actually be applied in the same way. So I don't think it has as much to do with, are you hiring talent? Are you outsourcing things? It really comes down to it's a relationship, and you want to manage a relationship, and these are tools you can use to do it.
So we have the next question I think we'll go for is, how do we manage misfit partners? And how and when do you realize that they are misfits?
Again, I'm always so amazed at how managing partnering relationships is actually also like managing personal relationships. And there's nothing harder than breaking up. You know it's over. You know that, the good times have been passed, and it's time to call a day a day. But when it does come to the misfit partners, first step is recognizing, hey, the value isn't there that we expected. The nature of why we came together was not, really there. And so once you've recognized that this isn't someone I really want to put a lot of time in, quite frankly, I've always found it's easier or best to just sit down and have that conversation. Hey, great company, think the world of the team we've been working with. But when we really sit back and look at the value that you're getting out of this relationship and the value that we're getting out of this relationship, I think we can probably both agree our time might be better spent working on other things. Would love to stay in touch. Business always changes. But I think it really does come down to that. Recognize that it's a misfit because you're not seeing the value out of it and that the partner's not seeing the value out of it. And then it's having the tough conversation. The longer you continue a misfit relationship, the more frustrated you're going to get and the more resource you don't have to actually allocate somewhere else. And the one thing I've learned is the fact that budgets are always tight, resources are always tight, and you're constantly having to get the most bang for the buck.
Well, it sounds like you speak from experience and having to do this or done this before. So I'm hoping, I'm sure that carries through. And maybe it goes into some of the next question and it continues on of how do you start that conversation when you don't see that value in the partner?
Yeah, so I would take two steps in this one. First of all, I would have a first conversation that really was, hey, let's evaluate and look at how our relationship has developed. One of the tools I didn't put in this deck just from a time perspective is a partner scorecard, which essentially what we do at the beginning of the partner relationship is we sit down and we look at different things we want to rank and rate the relationship on, effectiveness of how we interact, if there are specific gives to gets, how are we doing on the give to gets, but kind of a scorecard for the relationship. And then use that as a tool that every quarter you sit down with a partner and you say, okay, hey, let's look at how things are going. Well, you can take that same approach by sitting down with a partner and saying, hey, let's just look at what were the original things we both wanted to get out of this, and let's look at how we feel about that. And you'll find that the discussion comes down to, yeah, we were going to go do it. Yeah, we never got around to it. Or, yeah, we had that revenue target of X number of dollars. Yeah, we only kind of got to 40% of it. And then after having that kind of adult conversation, if you will, about are we getting the value out of this that we wanted, then you kind of both go back to your corner, have a deep thought, and then really come down and sit down and say, hey, maybe this isn't the best place where we should be. But I would challenge you in that process, think about, have you actually given everything you should have to that relationship? Because it may not be a misfit. It may have been that you just didn't align your resources for success. So I would definitely take a step back and make sure that it really is a misfit. But having that conversation about the value you've gotten out of is usually a good way to get started.
So it makes me think, so first of all, I really will take away the idea of the right resource, right partner at the right time. And it makes me, this question or your answer makes me think, was there a time when you were able to take something what you thought from a misfit relationship and realign it to what it was more, maybe not strategic, but at least, opportunistic?
If it's truly a misfit, meaning the value's not there for you and the value is not there for the partner, it's just not going to go anywhere. But coming back to a little bit of what I was saying, sometimes something will feel like a misfit because you don't see the value. But when you take that step back, you go, wow, the reason we're not getting the value out of it was we said we were going to go drive 5 co-marketing campaigns together to make this revenue number, and we only got one done. Or we said, hey, we're going to get our engineers together to develop a new innovative offering to the market, and we both got sidetracked doing our own things. So that recognition of, hey, it feels like a misfit, take that step back and make sure it's not just a factor of we didn't apply the right resources at the right time. So that in that case, you can probably get something out of it. But if it truly is a misfit, no value to either partner, then it's not going to go anywhere.
Time to get out. Okay. So I'm going to combine two questions here. We have one about can you go over the tools again, and somebody needing to apply those immediately, it looks like, and then another question about the key performance indicators to measure success. So maybe what I'd say there is, of the tools that you presented, if somebody needs to use those right away, which it sounds like, where would you start? And then kind of go back to say, how would you measure the success of those tools? And I know you went over those through, but maybe just go back to the highlights, the ones that where you'd start.
Okay. Wow. Let's see, where would I start on the tools? I think probably, in terms of I need to immediately get going with something, I think probably the tool that I would go back to is really understanding the value of the relationship. And so I would go back to either the tool that was around understanding the partner value, the growth potential versus the strategic value, and really, understanding that. I'd probably also go back and look at that kind of quadrant that said value to the partner and value to the company. Is it a misfit? Is it opportunistic because there's more value to the partner than us? Is it an orphan because there's more value to us than the partner? And then is it strategic? But I think I would first get a handle on where do my partnerships sit relative to value. So that'd probably be the first one that I would go back to. I would also go to that kind of end, putting it in action, and probably write that up for that particular relationship, because that kind of embodies everything that we went through in the conversation. On the metrics on the how do you measure success around the partnerships, again, kind of going back to that final tool of putting it together, it really is looking, what is it we want to get out of this? What were the objectives of the relationship? And that should inform the key performance indicators then. If we said, hey, this is about distribution, this is about driving revenue opportunity, then what you should probably do is get really crystal clear that, hey, in this relationship, we want to drive X number of dollars by such and such a time frame, or a percentage growth increase in a certain time frame. If the relationship is about new product development and our objective is, hey, we want to churn out 3 new products by the end of the year. So I would, on the key performance indicators, always go back to why is it we're partnering, what are the objectives of that relationship, and that should inform then the measurable goals that you have for it.
Yeah, so basically when you started that relationship, you should have come to an agreement and understanding of what those measures of success were.
Exactly.
And those would drive as your key performance indicators. All right, I think we have time for one more. Again, everybody for their questions. I'm sorry if we did not have a time to answer all of them, but I think this is a great way to end, kind of so basically about being suggestive of a venture, but we're going to end with how do you manage accountability on your own part as well as the part of the partner?
I think, this comes back down to if you have a plan in hand in the very beginning and you've both agreed what you want to accomplish out of the relationship and what the gives to gets are going to be in the relationship, then the way I would manage that is every quarter, sitting down, and it may be a longer time frame, it depends on the nature of the business, but on a regular cadence, sitting down with that partner and saying, hey, these are the things we said we were going to do. These are the objectives we said we wanted to accomplish. How are we doing? And not try to manage it all at once at the end, but instead having that periodic update of sitting down with your partner, making sure you're still in alignment, making sure everyone's doing what they're supposed to do, and it becomes a process. I think one of the failures that companies have is they sign the partnering agreement and they figure, everyone's going to go do what they said they were going to do. They come back together at the end of the year and it's like, what happened? So it's that making it part of a rigor or continuous process.
Well, I'm going to thank you so much, Linda, for your time and the knowledge. It is terrific. I hope that everybody who's been with us today will take a chance and an opportunity. If you need to learn more from Linda in one of the courses that she's offering through the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Certificate. And if you have any questions, we will try to answer the questions that we have remaining. Linda, maybe one last closing remark, and thank you so much.
Partnerships can be such an important part of the business. Some companies I find treat them as an afterthought. It's, let's have this partnership. When you really think about how partners can move your business, why you partner, why you would want to partner, and make it a part of an integrated business plan, it can do huge things for the company.
All right. Well, again, Linda, thank you. Thank you for everybody who attended, and that ends today's webinar.